This video is for the HERS raters. What we're going to talk about is whether or not you're going to include an attic, crawl space, or basement as part of your infiltration volume. Stay tuned. Okay, HERS raters, this is a topic that gets brought up to our tech support team pretty often. So we're going to dive into the weeds here on ANSI ResNet 380, the 2022 version that talks about how to address attics, crawl spaces, and basements. And we're really going to put the focus on attics because that's the question that we receive the most. For you to include an attic as part of your infiltration volume, and infiltration volume is a term that the ResNet 380 standard uses, that is your air barrier that you are allowed to test. So you have your condition volume, which is the condition space that's deliberately served by the HVAC system. The infiltration volume might have some extra parts that you can also include. For an attic to be included as part of that infiltration volume, a couple of things have to be true. So the first one is that attic must be specifically dedicated to the unit that you are testing. So for example, if you were testing a duplex and the two units share an attic space, then you cannot include that attic as part of your infiltration volume. Now, if we're talking about single family homes, that should always be true. So the next part of the criteria is there's one or two things have to be true. Either that attic space has to be part of that condition volume, which means it's deliberately served by the HVAC system, or it has to be unvented but have the roof deck and gable end walls air sealed and insulated. So if the attic is dedicated specifically to that unit and it's either deliberately conditioned or unvented, air sealed and insulated, then you can include that as part of your infiltration volume. But in this 2022 version of ResNet 380, what ResNet wants you to make sure of is that the attic and the condition space below have pressure uniformity while you're running your blower door fan. And what that means is when you're running the blower door test, it wants that attic to be at the same pressure as the rest of the house below, or at least close to it. And what they're requiring is that the attic and the condition space must be within 10% of each other. So how do you check for that? What you'll do is you'll run your blower door fan. Let's just say you'll run it to 50 pascals or negative 50 pascals. And so if 50 is our target pressure that we're searching for and we get there, then to be within 10%, that attic space above can be no more than 5 pascals difference. And we can check that with another high resolution manometer. The Solo that we manufacture is a good low cost option to do that. It has the same pressure sensor and auto zeroing pressure switch that the DM32 and DM32X has. And you can also use our multi-probe. And this is a very small metal probe that's about 1/16 of an inch in outside diameter that you can get into all kinds of small nooks and crannies. Any way that you can find to access that attic above, this is going to be your gateway on how to get there. So for example, if you have a space between sheetrock and a light fixture or a bath fan, or maybe there's a small gap and some caulk around an HVAC supply or return, anywhere that you can find to slip this little probe up into the attic is going to be how you're going to do that. Or another thing that you can do is, since your attic hatch will be open while you're doing this, you can take a long enough hose, toss it through the attic hatch into the attic, and just make sure the end of that hose is far enough away from the attic hatch so that it's not directly in the airflow. And like I said, any attic hatches that are connecting conditioned space to the attic, you'll have those open. And any accesses that are connecting the attic to the outdoors, you want to have those closed. And so the issue that ResNet is trying to avoid is if you have that attic access door open, and your encapsulated attic just isn't sealed well enough, the fan power that you have to depressurize the house may not be enough to bring the attic under the same pressure. And if that's the case, then they do not want you to include that attic space as part of your infiltration volume. But as we know, if we're trying to have our blower door number reach a certain ACH 50 to meet code or an above code program, having that additional volume helps bring that ACH 50 number down. So the more volume that you have, the easier it is to meet certain air tightness requirements. So if you run your blower door fan, you probe the attic, and you see that you are not getting pressure uniformity with that attic access hatch open, you can either stop there and just not count the attic as part of your infiltration volume, or what ResNet allows you to do is force that attic space to reach the same pressure as the rest of the house, and you'll need an additional fan to do this. So if you're not getting pressure uniformity, ResNet does allow you to hook up a booster fan to that attic access and neutralize it with the rest of the house. So let's just say your attic access is in the interior space. Let's say it's in a hallway or something like that. If you only need just a little bit more fan flow to make it neutralized, to be within that 10% tolerance, you can use a duct tester to hook up to that attic hatch and run a neutralization test, kind of similar to how we do a duct leakage to outside test, except what you're doing is you're just running your fan to get it so that it's the same pressure as the rest of the house. And the nice thing about having the attic access in the conditioned space is that the additional fan that you hook up to the attic hatch, you do not need to add that in to your blower door number. It's automatically applied on your main blower door hooked up on the exterior door. And I need to add too, if we're talking about a very large house that might have a lot of leakage through that spray foamed attic assembly, and a duct tester is not going to be enough, you can actually use an additional blower door fan too. We make a kit just for this. It's actually used in a totally different industry, but it's the perfect fix for this. It's called our leakage split kit, and it is a duct for the blower door fan that you can hook up to the attic. And it also comes with a corrugated plastic plate with a hole in it with weather stripping, so you can actually install the blower door fan horizontally and run it that way without a duct. So depending on the attic access, what you have room to do, you can install it either way. So like I said before, if the attic access door is in conditioned space, you do not need to add the flow from that second fan to your blower door number. Now, if your attic access is outside of the conditioned space, let's just say you have a house where the only way you can get into the attic is from the garage, then you do have to add that flow from the second fan to your blower door number. And so if you're choosing to go this route to neutralize the attic space with a second fan, where things get a little bit tricky is where you're trying to do a multi-point test. So anytime you're controlling two fans where you're trying to do a multi-point test, the best way to do that is through software. And with the Retrotec gear, we have Fantastic. That's our multi-fan software that we use in the commercial industry all the time, where we're running multiple fans to test large volumes of space. And so depending on where your attic access is will determine how you hook everything up in the software. So I'll first talk about the scenario where we have the attic access inside. We're not going to add additional flow to our main blower door fan. So in Fantastic, what we want to do is we want to assign the manometer that's running either our duct tester or our secondary blower door fan that's ducted. We want to call that the neutralizer. So there's an option for that when you select your equipment in Fantastic. So you'll drop down, let's just say if we have a 340 fan that we're going to run, we're not going to select that. We're going to select neutralizer because we don't care what the flow is. We just want it to get to the same pressure as the rest of the house. And any flow generated by that fan is counted by our primary blower door fan. And the other thing that we're going to make sure that we select is how we control fans from the software. So Fantastic gives us two options. We have what's called common control and individual control. Common control runs the fans all at the same rate at the same time. In this case, we don't want to do that. Whether our attic access is inside or outside the conditioned space, we're always going to select individual control. And what that allows us to do is run the fans at different speeds to get to the same pressure. And in order for all of this to work smoothly the way that it should, we're going to reference both manometers to the outdoors. So our manometer that's attached to our duct tester or our secondary blower door fan, we are going to attach a tube to the red port and then tether it to the other manometer's red port. So they're going to be teed together or manifolded, as we call it, and then have one reference tube going to the outside. So that way, both manometers have the same reference. So that has to occur for both fans to be operated correctly through software. And then our blue tube is going to be referencing inside of the attic. So that's how it's going to read what that attic pressure is with relation to outside. If you've never run Fantastic before, if this is a completely new thing to you, I have some other webinars on our YouTube channel that talk about large building testing with multiple fans using software. So I would recommend going through that to really get a deeper dive into the workflow, and definitely try this out before you go into the field. You can try it at home or try it at the office, get a couple of fans, and just get used to the workflow. See what the software needs in order to get a successful test. Now let's talk about if your attic access is outside of the conditioned space. This is where we are going to count the flow off of both fans. So we're still going to set everything up in individual control, but instead of choosing neutralizer for the secondary fan, we're going to choose what that fan is. So whether if it's a 340 duct tester or a Model 5000 blower door, whatever that fan is, that's what we're going to select, because we are going to count the flow off of that. So when you have this scenario when there's an attic access outside of the building enclosure, always use the duct from the leakage split kit. Don't use the plate. It's just a lot easier. And so the difference is when you do this is that you're going to have your manometers outside. So it'll be easiest to place them in the garage. And then you'll have your red tubes on both manometers referencing back inside. So on your primary blower door manometer, that red tube is just going to reference back inside the house. And then the one on the duct going back into the attic, that red tube is going to reference back into the attic. So the main reason for this is when you're using Fantastic, or really when you're doing any kind of blower door test with multiple manometers and fans, you always want all of the gauges inside or outside. You can never really split them up. So in this case, it's easier just to keep them all outside. So here you can see we're set up to depressurize. If I wanted to pressurize the house, all I would do is just flip both fans around in the other direction. So in Fantastic, there's two control methods that we can choose whenever we run a multi-point test. There's full auto and then there's semi-auto. So full auto, what you will do is in the settings, you'll go ahead and predetermine what your target pressures are before you run the test. And then in semi-auto, you'll start with what your beginning target pressure will be. You'll run fans, you'll collect data, and then you'll tell it what you want your next target pressure to be after that. So you just tell it what those target pressures are as you go, versus full auto, you tell the software what all of those target pressures are, and then you just let it go. And the only time it's gonna stop is when you need to do a range change. But like I said, to get a better understanding of the workflow of Fantastic, just check out one of my other videos talking about large building testing. So now, having heard all of this, to see what this process is like, you'll see that if you really want to count that leaky attic assembly as part of your infiltration volume, it takes some extra work. For one person, it's a lot. And I hope you charge accordingly, because it is going to take you a lot more effort and a lot more time, especially when you're pulling out software and networking gauges together. It's a much more complicated process than just running a single fan blower door test. And the other thing to think about here is if you're not getting pressure uniformity, whenever you do that initial check with your second manometer, I would be offering my services to that builder to figure out why. That attic assembly should be tighter than it is. So usually when I get into a situation like this, if I'm testing a building and it's not coming out to how the builder or how the client wants it, so that's when we start doing an hourly rate to see why that building isn't performing the way we want it to. So if the attic is leakier than it should be, that's when it's a good time to pull out a fog machine, maybe a thermal imaging camera if the weather allows for it, to see where the leaks are in that attic and get them fixed. It's an easier blower door test for you to perform, plus it just creates a better house for the homeowner. And if you're running into a similar issue with a crawl space, an encapsulated crawl space or basement, then the process is the same. Likely in a crawl space, you're only going to have one or two entry doors from the outside, so you'll have that second fan hooked up to it, and you'll count the flow off of both fans. Basements may be similar. Maybe in a basement you can get away with hooking up a second blower door fan and a doorway. This depends on how that basement's built, but the process is still the same. And if you're choosing to use a second blower door instead of a duct tester, that plate that we manufacture that comes with a leakage split kit, if that's what you like, you could actually make your own out of plywood, get a router, cut out a hole for your fan, and you can put weather stripping around it. And then tape off the rest as you need to there at the attic access. So there you have it. So per the ResNet 380 2022 standards, that's how you will address attics, crawl spaces, and basements to see if they are going to be part of that infiltration volume, and if it's not meeting pressure uniformity, what your options are after that. So As always, if you guys have any questions about anything, feel free to give us a call. You can reach out to our support team as well at support@retrotec.com, and we're always happy to help you out. Thanks for watching.